As many in the AAIS community know, we are facilitating a proof of concept on behalf of the North Dakota Insurance Department, focusing on how well the openIDL blockchain and distributed ledger technologies can effectively address questions related to uninsured motorists. We were able to catch up with North Dakota Insurance Commissioner and NAIC Vice President Jon Godfread for an update on the openIDL POC and much more.
Well, I think first with Mike's departure, it's we're obviously sad to see Mike go. Mike has been a fixture at the NAIC my entire tenure here. I mean, he's been with us for 6 years. I've been a commissioner for about 7. Really, Mike is all I know at the NAIC CEO role. But I also know that Mike's done a fantastic job of building the NAIC and building the core functions and what we do and the structure and where we're at. And so we're certainly sad to see him go. I understand, this is a demanding job, and the great thing about insurance is it touches everywhere. The tough thing about insurance is it touches everywhere. So you got to be everywhere as the NAIC CEO. So I think some of those demands probably wore on him, and as I think they would anybody. So I think we understand that we're parting ways on a very amicable way. I think Mike has a great love for the organization. I share that love. I think all the members share that love. So it's certainly going to be different, but I think we're in a good place to transition away from Mike. I think Mike, like I said, Mike has spent 6 years building this organization up and getting it ready to a point where it's ready for that next step. He uses the Boy Scout model. You want to leave it better than you found it, and I think he certainly did that. And so we've been lucky to have him for as long as we did, and we're excited to see what he does next. So I think we're certainly aware of it. We're certainly monitoring it and then looking at it. But I think there is a significant difference between insurance and banking, and so I don't think we have the concerns that maybe our bank regulators have. And I think this was shown through the 2008 financial crisis that the insurance industry weathered that very well. From all we're tracking right now, the insurance industry is weathering this. I would hope it's a minor blip in this space. A lot of it is built on corporate bonds and the issues around that. There is certainly some holdings of insurance companies in that space, but these are such longer tail products generally and longer tail investments that I don't anticipate a similar, I really don't anticipate any issues in the insurance space, but it certainly doesn't mean as a financial regulator in that market space, as we are at the NAIC, that we're not monitoring it, and we'll certainly probably have more comments on it as we go forward. But at this point, we don't have any red flags that we're looking at or any alarm bells, and we've kind of done that first cursory overview. But I imagine you'll see us dig a little bit deeper to make sure. You don't just because there isn't smoke doesn't mean there isn't fire. But at this point, we don't see any issues on the horizon. So our North Dakota proof of concept is really it's been something I think we've been thinking about for a number of years since we've started a relationship with AAIS and working on technology. And for me, it all gets back to the data chain and how do we solve the data problems that we have. And we've often gone back to North Dakota. We are a small state. We're a rural state. That's not a secret. And getting that data, getting that information has been a challenge for us. For us to do a data call for North Dakota, it's you get the industry will kind of push back and say, boy, is that really necessary? Well, we need the data just as well as anybody else needs the data. So if we've got to rely on that stat reporting, we're 18 to 24 months behind on any relevant data. And when you get into the legislative session, you're making policy decisions, you need current relevant data to make good policy decisions. So it all kind of stemmed from that question of why can't we answer these data questions or simple questions about insurance in a timely manner without having to go through the headache of a massive data call. And I think the industry supports that. I've talked with the industry there. They don't like data calls as much as anybody else likes data calls. I don't like data calls. It takes 20 days to get the information back, and then inevitably it's wrong. We asked the question wrong, or something wasn't what we thought it was going to be, and then it's 3 months before we get an answer to a question. And in the middle of a legislative session, that's an eternity. And so we tried to find a question that we felt was fairly simple, and I still think it's simple. Is does this vehicle have insurance? And so partnering with our North Dakota DOT, partnering with the top 10 carriers in our state, of saying, okay, can we come together and see if we can't test this out to see if this works, and where are the issues at, and trying to utilize the blockchain to solve that data problem. Because I do think, I still believe that the blockchain is going to be that ultimate data solution at some point. We may not be there quite yet, and the uptake may not be where we want it to be, but again, we've got to solve that data problem. That's what this proof of concept is attempting to do, to say that, hey, it's really not that painful, it's really not that difficult. And there's a significant amount of value for both parties, both the industry and the regulators, to actively engage in this process. And so, again, it was about see if we can set up a blockchain system where we can have DOT putting the VIN numbers onto the blockchain, and we can have the industry being able to run those numbers against that and say, okay, yep, our these vehicles are insured in North Dakota. It also gets to the heart of answering the uninsured motorist question, which is a big topic in North Dakota. It's a big topic in many states, I imagine. And we've seen these type of processes duplicated in other states in terms of full IT upgrade builds for this. That's cost, that's expense, that's a significant undertaking for a state to build a system where I can answer the same question. And as we found, and I think as we believe, the blockchain is going to be more cost effective, and it's going to be hopefully a simpler model that'll have a broader expanse to it as well, not just solving one singular problem. Like if I build a system to say, I can run these VINs through these insurance policies, well, I've solved that problem, but that's the only problem I've solved. And I think if we can, again, prove out the blockchain and prove out this method, that data chain should be able to be solved for many other pieces as well. And so it's all getting back to the data. It's all getting back to that data transfer. I still stand by the fact that I think our value chain in this industry is flipped on its head right now, where our companies have to give up the data to then run through a stat reporter to then buy it back. And again, that the value is the data, and we need to respect that value. And I think we can accomplish that through projects like this, and hopefully we've got a long-term solution. And again, trying to solve that problem of the data chain. As we've gone through the process and now data is flowing through our system, I think the industry my guess would be they're a little bit surprised at how easy it is and how it's not as intrusive as I think they believed it was going to be. And again, when we get technical experts talking to technical experts, there seems to be no issues. It's when you're trying to analyze and figure out the blockchain and you've never interacted with it, you've got some questions, you've got some concerns. And but I think we've solved a lot of those, and I think we will have a good report to bring out. And hopefully, again, I think it's been good for all parties. I think we've been open and transparent in the process. I think we have been very accommodating to the requests and to the concerns that the industry's raised. And I think we've done our very best to meet all their concerns. And I think, again, as we've gone through the process, I think they've hopefully come to realize that some of the concerns they had at the beginning maybe weren't really founded as we've gone through that. And so that's my hope anyway. Yeah. So no, I think the only thing that I'd add is we've been very pleased to our partnership with AAIS, and it's been a good process for us in North Dakota. And I'm hoping it's been the same for AAIS. And, I'm sure there's been times where it's been frustration for the teams and everybody as we go through implementation and the process. But again, that goes back to change is hard. But I think, again, when we look at the question we're trying to answer is, how do we manage data? How do we analyze data? How do we get the data? And I think as you go through this proof of concept, we're going to see that this is a viable solution. This is a viable option for us to continue to explore and continue to go down that road. And I think you'll see this even move into the H committee with some discussions. More and more commissioners are coming on board with, boy, why is it so hard to do a data call? Why is this? There's got to be a better way. And I think we'll get there. And so I think you'll see the H committee even look at this. We're going to give a presentation to them talking about this proof of concept, and that may turn on some more commissioners in terms of what other options are available, which is really important for a rural state like ours. And there's plenty of other rural states that have similar issues. So we're excited. We're optimistic on the direction we're heading, and it may not be solved tomorrow. This may not be something that gets solved tomorrow, but I think this is a very important first step to say, okay, we've talked about the blockchain. We've talked about this for a number of years. Now we can kind of prove that it is a viable solution, or there's a viable option. And sure, we can learn as we go, and we can make tweaks. But at the core, it's a success. Well, I want to get through the legislative session. We're in the middle of the legislative session right now, working on our budget, obviously, and looking at how do we maintain the size of our department. How do we maintain all the activity we've got? We've done some pretty significant restructuring within the department, and we're pleased with that and how that's going at this point. We've got some other ancillary issues we're working on with the fire marshal, and so we're going to bring the fire marshal back underneath North Dakota, or the insurance department, which again should all hopefully give us more access to risk mitigation tools and how do we engage the citizenry to prevent fires and prevent risk. And so there's some synergies there that make sense. On the broader topics, I think we've got much like every other state or many other states, we've had a significant turnover in our legislature. So this has been a very defensive session for us and an educational session. Insurance regulation gets complex very quickly, and we've lost a lot of knowledge has walked out the door with retirements and elections. And so we're building that next crop of insurance legislators to be engaged in our process, and that's going fairly well. So I've got no complaints on how our session's going and what 2023 is going to hold. And then you also got the NAIC stuff that we're working on too. And so as an officer of the NAIC, we're certainly in the middle of a transition, as you mentioned. I mean, with Mike stepping down, that'll consume a lot of time this year. And we're also going to probably look at any time a CEO walks out the door, you've got a chance to maybe restructure things and then look at what this role does and hopefully try to make it more sustainable for the next person. So those are going to be things that kind of consume my 2023, I think, as well as just the regular normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 job that we got. So.
Well, all I can say is there is a lot going on in the regulatory space these days. I'd like to thank the regulators who made the time to speak with us over the last few weeks or so. We know their time is valuable and it means a lot to AAIS and our members.